And we're back. This is footage from the Neah Bay 2024 rockfish cookoff. And his initial shots is just going to be blasting some fish. We've done a good walkthrough video the first time around, and this one's not going to repeat a lot of what happened before. It's just going to be, you get to watch me shoot some fish for a bit. And then some of the last clips actually have some lessons for you on that. I'll throw some tidbits in between. Story behind these first couple of fish shots is we took the little inflatable dinghy out and we tried to check out a new spot, and there was zero fish there. No fish whatsoever. We didn't even see a single rockfish. So we're like, screw this. The water's still 50 degrees, so we're just going to pack up. We're going to go to where we know there are fish. We're going to grab fish over 20 minutes, and we're going to head back to camp because we have the rockfish cook-off the next day, and I need to work on my recipe because I'm going to win first place. Spoiler note, I don't win first place. So here we are, shooting some fish. So you start off with rockfish. So one thing I want to press to some of you folks starting off with pole spearing, you might see what I do and take from it the thought that you can just blast a fish, throw it on your stringer, all is good. But I do want to admit that when I first started pole spearing, there was a whole lot of shooting a fish, and there was a question mark as to whether or not you were going to get that fish home. So in the process of shooting the fish and getting it onto your stringer and stoning it, we have lost fish before. So in order to play it safe and guarantee you get that fish home, while it's still attached to your pole spear or shaft, go ahead and get it on your stringer. Once you get that fish on your stringer, no matter whether it comes back to life, your pole slips out or whatnot, you have that fish secured. And then from there, go ahead and stone your fish. As I mentioned before, I am using the Evolve 3-prong. It has a studded tip. And even though these pole spears have been out for a number of years now, I'm still running across a lot of people using the old-fashioned pole spears, which are still completely great, normal, good pole spears to use. But these studded tips are just cheating. They're just like a cheat code. I've never seen fish stick to a pole spear so easily as you see in these videos. And it has to do with these studded tips and my pretty good shot placement. Alright, so again, this is day before the rockfish cook-off. I'm just out to gather some fish quickly so I can practice my recipe. I didn't have much time to practice it before the cook-off for the next day. You'll know that this is day one based off of I don't have a glove on my left hand. And funny enough, I was telling everybody, hey, make sure you have your face mask, you have your fins, your socks, and everything you need. And then we get out there and I'm missing both my gloves. Luckily, Tom uses a different glove when he's using a pole spear, so I got to use his right hand. But as you see, I am without a left-handed glove, and I made plenty of jokes to Tom about him having to use basic gardening gloves because it has better grip and how his hand will just go numb and he won't feel the cold anymore. And then I have to go and do it myself. And I can confirm your hand does go numb, and you won't feel that stinging shock from the cold anymore. So this particular day, for whatever reason, the rockfish really seem to be in the kelp. So after a certain point in time, I stopped going all the way to the bottom. And I just went to whatever nice overhanging canopy I saw in the kelp to look for rockfish. Again, these were not the biggest rockfish, but I was just trying to get 7 and get out of the water. And in the kelp worked out just fine. And this is about the only time that one of the few times I would say you can go ahead and go mid-water versus going straight to bottom. As you can see, shot placement wise, it's always good to go for a gill plate or a stone shot. A lot of these shots this day, for whatever reason, ended up being rear quarter shots, which I still managed to pull off because I'm handsome and awesome like that. So here we are, taking a drop. Seeing all the little beautiful bait fish. Hoping to find some hungry rockfish out there. Looking to eat more of them. Grabbing top of some bull kelp to help hold me at this higher depth because I'm weighted to be neutrally buoyant a little further down. Scanning side to side looking for the biggest fish. Loading 3-prong. And hey, how you doing there? You want to come to dinner? And there we go. So again, day one, there's not too much going on other than me just shooting some rockfish quickly. Just whatever the biggest rockfish is on each drop, unless they're all significantly small, which I do have to admit, these were not at all prize rockfish. But I was making rockfish crab cakes, so the size of the rockfish didn't matter. I just needed enough to make some individual cakes. There I am, hanging on to that bull kelp again to keep my buoyancy. Can't figure out which rockfish is biggest. Keep in mind, I don't know if I mentioned this before. Oh, that was not the biggest. That's a baby rockfish. Aside from aiming properly, how to get the most power out of your shot is your release of the pole spear. You do not want to just open your hand enough to feel that shaft running through it. You want to essentially go from a closed fist to a high five immediately. As quickly as you can release that and let that shaft fly unhindered is how you'll get the most power out of it to get a penetrative shot, especially for the longer shots. Here in the Pacific Northwest, it's not too much of an issue to get up close to these fish and shoot it. But when you start diving in other places where your shots can be significantly longer, you'll want to get as much power out of it as possible. In the last 3 clips, one of the shots in particular, you'll see I take a very far shot. That particular day, we were all diving at a new spot. And unfortunately, we could only find fish in one spot out of that entire shelf. So there's a handful of us working this school of fish. And after a half hour, they were rather wise and skittish. So they were staying far away. They were immediately moving when you got down there. They moved a lot more skittishly, and you'll see that on the shot. And I had to take a very far shot. So that's when having a really good release is critical. So this is actually the start to the day 2 footage, I believe. This shot went down looking for rockfish and found a smaller one and then got distracted by a little lingcod. But lingcod wasn't big enough to desire taking. So I just said hi to it. I thought it was a greenling for a while. Alright, so I do believe this is the one where I have the long shot, and there is actually a lesson to be learned in this one. So aside from the long shot, what you're going to see me do is when I hit the fish, because I know it's not a great holding shot, I'm going to release the pole spear. The reason behind this is if you're hanging onto the pole spear with a bad shot, that's more resistance for the fish to pull off against. So by releasing the pole spear and swimming up to the fish, I've got a better chance of landing that fish before it rips off the tip. So I swam up to it, secured the fish, and then brought everything up together. And I'm just going to point it out now because the video footage of me landing it doesn't show much of it, but did get a decent sized cabezon that day, and you might see it on these last clips, hanging on to my float line because of the many things I've forgotten throughout this trip. The fish stringer was one of them for that particular day. So while I'd like to teach you better habits, I will teach you some workarounds for when you've forgotten things. In regards to forgetting a fish stringer or a cuy, you can take your float line, just run it right through the gills and out the mouth of your fish, and then just clip off to yourself, and it'll stay between yourself and the float. It's fine enough for certain situations, not the best for sharky or really aggressive seal situations, which luckily wasn't the case today. So here's another good opportunity to learn. Spot me a rockfish, I loaded up, I saw it initially, and then I didn't see it as I went closer, so I predicted it should be just behind this rock. Took a peek, and sure enough, there he is. There's a shot, ooh, clipped, but it's somewhat stunned, and I am a big proponent of you want to land your fish. So even though the second shot on the fish was not one I prefer to take into the rocks, potentially even a body shot, it means more to me to not leave an injured fish out there. So as you saw, clipped it on the first shot, reloaded, blast it into the rocks, pin it, and bring it home. So this particular cabezon, I spotted it as I was just swimming along. You don't see it in this clip, but it hunkered down. I loaded up, went down. I was just barely able to spot it after that. Now this fish ended up being 15 pounds. As you see, it put up a struggle there initially. What you can't really tell is after I shot it, saw that it was a good holding shot, I put all my weight into the pole spear and swam straight down. So I'm pinning this thing heavily to the rocks. I get down to the fish, I secure it and my shaft, and I worked my way up. There was a little hindrance between the end of my pole spear and the kelp. Not so much myself and the kelp, but just the pole spear. So I let the back end of the pole spear go slack, was able to swim very easily, and then work on securing my fish. If you've not shot a cabezon before, or even caught one on a fishing pole, they're really hard to stone. I can't actually say I've successfully done it. So in this case, I cut its gills. I attempted a good stone from inside the gill plate. You'll see I tried from the head initially, but the head is so thick and tough that it just wasn't working out. So I went from inside the gill plate next, did my best with it, and then I strung it up. So that's about it. Just want to thank you all for watching the video. Again, this channel is just meant to serve as a resource for other divers starting off in the Pacific Northwest, but I still do appreciate the growth that it's having. Take care and dive safe.